in the EMBA. Some of your names look familiar to me, so I'm glad to see you in a different setting. I teach critical thinking in the EMBA. I teach organizational behavior as well as value systems and ethics. So kind of the soft skills within the EMBA. And I think I've seen some of you in class. I love to teach, and I'm so excited to talk about critical thinking today because this is so important, not only in life and in school, but also in our work. And all of you, if you're not executives, you're on your way to being executives. I've seen your applications, I've seen your transcripts, and you'll be executives in the future. So today we'll talk about critical thinking and how executives approach things. And obviously, all of us have worked with the executives. You've probably observed some of these things in your work, but executives consider multiple perspectives. They don't just look at their perspective. They think about the perspectives and different facets and how it will hit the business in terms of the people within the organization, especially when we're talking about change management. Thinking about people and what their needs are is very important. They think about budgets, staying under budget, the revenue as well as the outgo, and they need to consider that in their decision making. They also think about the mission and vision of the organization and strategies to realize that mission and vision, and the public relations implications of decisions. And these are obviously very complex considerations. So as we start thinking about critical thinking, tell me, what are some areas of critical thinking that you use in your life? Where are areas that you think about critical thinking and apply critical thinking? And can you put those into the chat for me? Hopefully y'all can see. I can't see the chat right now, Courtney. So if there are brilliant ideas.
I will let you know. I'm not seeing anything in there.
Okay. And Ottawa University colleagues, where do you apply critical thinking in your lives? Help me out. Well, while you guys reflect on that, I would suggest that we use critical thinking not only in our work and in our studies within Ottawa University, but we also use critical thinking in our everyday lives. So we'll talk about each of those. If we have time to get to our everyday life, we will, but we're going to focus first on work and on our studies. So let's start with that. All right.
And Dr. Moore, just to let you know, we've got
Yep.
some answers coming in. Managing
Great.
health, time management, financial decisions at work, promoting teamwork, career building, thinking ahead and strong thinking. So some really good ones coming in.
Excellent answers. Thank you for that, friends. I appreciate that. Well, critical thinking is not our normal everyday thinking. It's not easy. It's not automatic. It's not passive. Critical thinking involves being far more engaged and making some time and space for creativity and reflecting. There are some decisions that just don't matter. I don't know if any of you have been playing the new game Among Us. There are kids at my house that love this silly game and spend a lot of time on it. And what hat you wear on your avatar in Among Us doesn't matter. What pets you have in the game doesn't matter. But we've got a lot of everyday issues that you guys just brought up where we don't want to just be in neutral in our thinking and passive. We want to be active. So according to Patterson, critical thinking is disciplined, active, skillful thinking where we analyze, we apply, we synthesize, we evaluate. It's active. It's not just passive. And so I want to talk a little bit about a few of these terms. The first thing that stands out to me in this definition is we're looking for multiple sources of input. I see their observations, reflection, and reasoning. So we don't just want to take the first easily apparent answer. In our Google search, we don't want to take the first hit only because somebody else has decided that's the most popular or most important answer. We want to look at multiple perspectives and sources of data. The next thing that stands out to me is we want to ask good questions. We're looking for evidence and data. And then you'll notice at the end of this definition, it's not just thinking, it's also action. And certainly executives don't just get to think about their critical process, they need to place it in motion. They need to take action based on the conclusions that they've drawn from critically assessing the situation and all of the data and information available to them. So as we think about work, it's not just thinking, it's also actions, of course. Critical thinking also involves several assumptions or things, approaches that you want to use. The first is we want to be rational, not emotional. As I have observed friends thinking about the upcoming presidential election in the United States, there's lots of emotion. If we want to think critically, we need to also think rationally, not just emotionally. I have a friend who recently bought a large home. Pretty emotional purchase when you've got lots of zeros on the transaction, but we need to be rational, of course, also. So I don't think this is negating or ignoring our emotions, but it's also not letting our emotions run away with us. We need a balance of rationality and emotion. We want to be self-aware about our motives and our bias. It's hard to be objective and critical in our thought process when we've predetermined what we believe the outcome should be based on our bias. And so if we're thinking critically, we need to have the ability to set that aside for a little bit. And we need to be honest. We want to think about our goals. We want to achieve our goals in ethical ways. And so we need to be critical thinkers in that regard as well. We want to be open-minded to other viewpoints and perspectives, especially within our organizations or in our teamwork here at school. There are folks in your classes that have different experiences, different perspectives, and good critical thinkers are able to consider those perspectives, even if they're different, and even if ultimately you say, I can't accept those assumptions, I'm going in a different direction. We at least want to temporarily suspend our conclusions to consider other viewpoints and perspectives, and this is important. As we talked about earlier, critical thinking and thinking like an executive is not a passive practice. It's precise, it's comprehensive, it's disciplined, and that is important to critical thinking. And then finally, we want to be really critical about the sources we use. I don't know about you, but I've got several news feeds on my phone, and not all sources are created equal. What BuzzFeed has to say is not as important to me as what the CDC says, for example. Somebody who's living, you know, in a other reality and not really plugged into reality, and they've got their blog or their vlog, they don't get as much headspace in my decision making as somebody who is a more legitimate source and has really done scientific research. So we want to really be critical thinkers when it comes to sources, and this is true at work as well as in our schoolwork. So have those things in mind. So let's talk a little bit about critical thinking at work. In the chat room, would you please share some places that you have applied critical thinking in your workspace? I know all of you do this every day. You could also raise your hand if you want to unmute and say something, and Courtney will let you speak up. How do you use critical thinking at work, friends? I feel like I need some Jeopardy music maybe as we think.
To create action plans for projects, solving complex problems, managing time on different projects based on the importance of the project, hiring decision, the next steps to take to solve a problem, risk management, saving money,
Excellent answers, excellent answers. You all came up with a list very similar to what I was thinking about the last few days. Prioritizing time and projects, absolutely critical as we work, right? All of us have more to do than we have time to do it. And so how do we prioritize? I also wrote down strategizing about relationships. Julie mentioned hiring decisions. That's part of relationships at work. Gathering information and good decision-making, talking with other departments and colleagues about our decisions. We've got wonderful resources in our colleagues to help us make good decisions too. And then once, thank you for participating, friends, I appreciate that. Once we have thought about all of these things and critically assessed, one of the things that we'll talk about in a future hack is clear communication. We want to do the hard work of critically thinking, but then we want to really be able to frame and share our great ideas in very precise ways. And I know several of you on this call speak 2 or 3 different languages. And those of us who only speak one, including me, really admire and respect the fact that you work in multiple languages, not just computer languages, but languages around the world. And we love that about what you bring to us into the workplace. So we'll be talking more about critical thinking, but just a sneak peek, we're also going to be thinking about communication in the future. All right, so let's turn a corner and we're starting to run. We're about halfway through our time. We're just going to be 30 minutes. So time flies when you're having fun, and we want you to be able to get back to your work day. Let's talk a little bit about critical thinking in the EMBA program specifically. And I know last week y'all heard from Dr. DeWald talking about self-plagiarism. You've got your academic advisor on this call. You've got several faculty members within the EMBA on this call. And so let's talk about the EMBA and critical thinking specifically. And I'd like you to jump on the chat again. And I was hoping you'd be willing to share, how have you used critical thinking so far in the EMBA program? Some of you are fairly new students. Some of you are moving towards wrapping up your master's degrees with Ottawa University. Tell me a little bit about how you've used critical thinking so far in your studies at Ottawa. You heard, while you guys are thinking, you heard at the intro that I've also got a master's degree from Ottawa University in HR. And I think I used a lot of critical thinking in understanding how to apply what I was learning. It's easy to understand theory, but I think application points and how to really use new information was a place that I used a lot of critical thinking while I was a student at Ottawa and other schools too. All right, I see some chat action. Let's see what we've got here. Planning, fantastic. Selecting team members for a group project. Oh, I really like that one. It's tempting to choose teammates at work and at school that kind of think like we do, or we get along with easily. And I would really encourage you to look for people who have perspectives and experiences different than your own, because you can learn so much from them. If I'm in a group with everybody who thinks like me, I'm not as stretched, even though it can be uncomfortable, and I won't get to learn as much through that team experience. Let's see, reviewing coursework, deadlines, and planning. Yes, that gets back to the prioritizing piece. Learning differences, real-time experiences. Irene, I think you're talking about applying information. Is that what you were saying in terms of real-time experiences? Let me know in the chat. And then learning differences. Yes, how we apply things, and whether we have a lot of work experience or we're brand new in the workforce, that can make a big difference in how we apply our critical thinking. What else have we got? Analyzing requirements, evaluating information. Excellent comments, friends. Excellent comments. Good. Well, one area I would like to focus on specifically within the EMBA program is your executive practicum course. And you all have probably stepped through this process several times. And Dr. DeWald, if you want to chime in with some additional thoughts, please feel very welcome to. But I wanted to talk specifically about your week 8 memo that, that you complete as part of the executive practicum course. And I know you guys do memos in the first 7 weeks where you're reflecting on application points and things. But I wanted to just encourage you that the week 8 memo is one of the really critical elements of your studies here at OU. And what we're looking for in that memo is not just a cut and paste of everything from week 7. We really want to see you take a little bit of time to reflect and synthesize, bring together all of your ideas from week 7 and be looking for ways to apply that in practical ways. So it's not just regular processing, regular reporting, it's really thinking and reporting at a higher level about your experience and what it means. So I want to really urge you to invest a little bit of time to reflect back and think through what your new knowledge means to you in the workplace in practical ways. Dr. DeWald, would there be anything you would want to add? Courtney, can you unmute Dr. DeWald for us, please?
I think I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I think one of the things that gets confusing with this for students is the fact, again, that you do this over and over and over in every class. And I concur with everything that Dr. Moore is saying about the synthesis and distilling of your ideas. But the more important piece is that you're not just reporting what you're doing in your job. And I know that gets repetitive because I've heard students say, well, I do the same thing over and over, and I really haven't changed my job that much. So how on earth is it that I can do something original for this class? Well, you absolutely can, because it's not just reporting what you're doing in your job. The object of executive practicum, again, is to apply or theoretically apply what you are doing in your job to what you are learning in each specific class. And I think that's the confusion everybody has. We're not just wanting you to report day in and day out what you're doing. Every class is unique and different. So there should be 8 unique memos. 16 unique. Let me step back. You take 12 courses total. There should be 12 course unique week 8 memos, because every course is unique. And it is your work applied with critical thinking and higher level synthesis back to this course. So just cutting and pasting should not even enter your mind, because every course is different. What you've just learned is different. And then that direct application back is different. That's a critical thinking skill. How have I learned over the last 8 weeks information that is unique to my position, rather than just, oh, I need to report out what my job is? That is not what the memo is supposed to do.
Super. Thank you so much for that clarification. So each one should be different. It should not be the same in every course. And that's a great place to apply critical thinking. Thanks, Dr. DeWald. That's awesome. One thing I wanted to just clarify as we think about synthesizing and analyzing, I just wanted to highlight the difference between those terms, because there's a little bit of difference there. Analyzing means we're picking something apart and we're looking at each element specifically, whereas synthesis has to do with bringing different ideas together. And we are looking for both analysis as well as synthesis. And synthesis is looking for the common themes and threads throughout an idea or a class or a curriculum. And so you want to be thinking in terms of both analysis as well as synthesis. And then as you're preparing that week 8 memo, you also want to be ready to share what you've learned. Take time to reflect. Consider talking about these ideas and concepts with others at work or others in your sphere of influence to help you process some of your thinking on how this might apply in your workplace. And then finally, you want to communicate your thoughts clearly. Check your final draft. Make sure, take a little bit of time to be sure that what you're communicating in that week 8 memo is really a succinct version of everything that you want to say, and it meets all the criteria outlined in the syllabus and in your course materials. So take the time to do that. It's not just a last minute cut and paste. And I think we've covered that well. Do you have any questions in terms of how that would apply and how we might apply critical thinking in the EMBA program specifically? We kind of went through several big important ideas. Are there any questions in the chat related to that before we move on?
We do have one question, Dr. Moore.
Great.
It's, can reflecting on course discussions help inform the narrative summary?
I think that is an element you can certainly integrate, but that would be incomplete if that's the only input you're using as you formulate your week 8 memo. Dr. DeWald, would you have anything, or other colleagues, would you have anything to add to that answer? It's one element, but you need to go beyond that.
Right. Again, this is, think of this at a more macro level. That would be my only recommendation to add to that. You need to look at it from more of a 37,000 feet looking down sort of scenario rather than in the minutia. Weeks 1 through 7 are minutia. Week 8 is the big macro picture.
Super. Thank you for that. All right, we're almost out of time. So we're going to talk about critical thinking in everyday life another day. But let's just kind of summarize and then see if we've got any other questions. We really want to think about how we apply our critical thinking to move towards more executive type thinking, which is where all of you are headed professionally as you continue to gain knowledge and experience. We want to reflect and synthesize our ideas, not just from one source, but from data, observations, conversations, hardcore research. All of those things should inform our decision-making at work, in school, and in life. We want to think actively. We want to be able to report accurately what we've learned and move ahead in that way. So today we've talked about how to think about things from a more executive perspective. This is a really quick time slot. I wish we had about 3 or 4 hours that we could talk more. Maybe you guys don't, but I do. I think that would be fun. So wanted to let you know next Thursday will be the next student hack. You're going to have Dr. Gloria Creed-DeCog speaking to you. And I mean, you need to be there for this next student hack. The online library is vast. It is powerful. You could spend a lot of hours researching, but I think Dr. Gloria is going to give you some great inputs to save you a lot of time in your research and to do an excellent job with your research. So plan to be there. You'll be getting an email from Miss Courtney. I do believe on that. So thanks for coming. And Courtney, I'll let you wrap things up.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Moore. I hope that all of you guys found that as helpful as I think I did even. We are so excited that you were here as we kind of hit our halfway mark of our Student Hack series. As Dr. Moore mentioned, it's a little bit different this coming week where we will not have a week in between the hacks. So the next one is a week from today, next Thursday, November 5th. It'll be a really great opportunity to learn more about the online library, how you can access all those resources and make your research more efficient as well. Thank you all so much for being here. I will be providing a link for this recording as I did for the first 2 recordings whenever I send out the flyer for next week's hack. Thank you all so much and have a great day.